Welcome to today's show, beautiful people. Hope you're having a really good day or evening, wherever you are. We're coming to you live from Johannesburg and other parts of the country to bring you the latest, the greatest, the not so greatest, and the exciting news to come out of the African and South African cannabis industry. There's a lot happening at the moment, so lots to get through. Linda, what are the headlines? Come into the matrix. Hello.
Hello, everybody. Hi, I'm great, man. Yourself?
I'm good. Just want to let everyone know this is your last week in Cape Town, Linda. You're on your way up to Chelsea. Looking forward to having you here, brother.
Yeah, I'm ready to have sold my soul to good old Johannesburg. I hope she treats me well and keeps me safe and my family and everything else that I hope to endeavor whilst I'm up there. Can't wait. It's currently raining now. It's currently raining.
There we go. It's sunny here, so don't stress. Well, good luck with the packing. What's coming up in the Brett's headlines today?
Right. So Parliament hopes to pass the cannabis bill in a few months. So this is really exciting to see and hear. And I can't wait for Brett to give us more in-depth info on that one, because the whole country is literally standing still and waiting to hear this. Calls for child cannabis offenders to be removed from the criminal justice system. Nedbank calls on government to fast-track cannabis reform. And Russian invasion puts spotlight on the cannabis oligarchs because they got all the money. So now the focus is on them. But that's the headlines for today, Trenton.
Cool. We've also got Noxy coming up with how to get rid of the weed odor. You know, you smell of weed and you want to get rid of it so no one can smell your stench. She's going to give us some tips on that. Jeff's going to be talking vape pens. The Zambian army want to grow cannabis. And he's also going to be updating us on some international stuff from Denmark. And then Carmen is talking opioid and addiction, and Cuban takes us through some lights from indoor sun. Without further ado, let's cross to Limpopo province. Over to you, Brett.
Good day from the CannaSphere news desk in Limpopo, where the early rain is cleared and the sun is coming out. Legislators are working frantically behind the scenes to try and get the Cannabis for Private Purposes bill into law as quickly as possible. This is apparently an instruction from President Cyril Ramaphosa's office. He's keen to back up his pledge to get the cannabis economy going. However, it remains unclear exactly what shape the bill will emerge in, as it's pulling in two different directions. The Justice Department sees the bill as allowing adults to legally consume cannabis in private and not be allowed to buy and sell, whereas the Department of Trade and Industry wants the bill to enable legislation that would allow for the regulated commercial trade of cannabis. Obviously, they've got hemp in mind, so then it all comes down to what percentage of THC will be legally tradable. Parliament's Justice and Correctional Portfolio Committee is anxious that the bill has changed so many times that the process should be opened up for public comment again. But they are under pressure to get at least one piece of cannabis legislation passed this year, so the compromise may be that the bill goes through the National Assembly first, then is opened up for public comment before going to the National Council of Provinces for final approval. CannaSphere understands that the state law advisors say this could be risky, as the bill may not pass constitutional muster and may be challenged in court the moment it is passed into law. And talking of courts, the Constitutional Court is mulling over the rights of children in terms of cannabis offences. Government and non-government organisations agree that the children who are found in possession of or dealing in cannabis should not be sent into the criminal justice system. And ConCourt is likely to uphold its ruling that sections of the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act are unconstitutional. However, UCT legal expert Nurina Ali says the education system also needs to be overhauled, as most schools have a zero-tolerance approach to drugs, and that it is punishment-orientated rather than problem-solving. She says many schools are simply pathways to prison, and that the education department needs to urgently overhaul its approach to cannabis. Nedbank is the first of the so-called Big Five of South Africa's banks to enter into the cannabis debate. Nedbank's agriculture division head, John Hudson, says the cannabis industry offers huge potential, but that government urgently needs to streamline the red tape that is inhibiting a legal market getting off the ground. Hudson says some of the major Nedbank clients have invested in cannabis and that the returns are promising, but there are too many hoops they have to jump through. He said cannabis offered opportunities across the value chain, but warned that the industry was being hampered by what he called excessive bureaucratic requirements and a lack of a clear regulatory framework. Looking further afield, the Russian invasion of Ukraine is starting to have a knock-on effect on the US cannabis industry. It's emerged that a Russian oligarch is the second major shareholder in America's largest cannabis company, Curaleaf, and that the founder and CEO, Boris Jordan, is half Russian himself. Shareholder Andrei Bloch owns a large portion of Curaleaf and is a US citizen residing in Moscow. He's been put on the sanctions list, and Curaleaf has taken to social media to say the company is not in danger of being targeted, but founder Boris Alexeyevich Jordan has not condemned the invasion, but Curaleaf says this is because he wants to be neutral. And Russian oligarch Andrei Muriev has been charged with making illegal political contributions as a foreign national to try and influence the 2018 US elections. And he's also on the run, believed to be hiding somewhere in Russia. And talking of Russia and the Ukraine invasion, let me just show you something here, Trenton. We have now got in at the CannaSphere newsroom a new mascot. And this is, I want you to meet Odessa. Odessa is a 5-week-old cross Rottweiler bulldog female who lost her mother. She's 5 weeks old, as I say, and we've taken her in, and she's going to be the CannaSphere newsroom watchdog and mascot. So everybody loves a puppy. Meet Odessa, and we'll see how big she grows by the time the Russian invasion is over. Back to you, Trenton.
Brett, very cute. It's the second puppy I've seen today. Someone brought a Rottweiler into
all right, so you're a bit jaded, puppy jaded.
The biggest paws you've ever seen. It's going to be a bear, you know. Cool, thanks for that. There's a lot going on. I think it's really interesting how Nedbank are actually getting into the conversation. That's big news, you know, because the minute the banks come online and actually realize they can actually make some money from interest, etc., I think it'll help move things forward. So a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, and there has to be a law in place in order for them to be able to lend money into the cannabis industry, and that's the only way they're going to make money. So they have to have a clear regulatory framework before they can commit. So that's why they're getting involved. Cool, awesome. We'll come back to you later. Speak to you later, Brett. Right now, let's cross over to, who are we crossing over to now? Oh, Noxy. I forgot about you, Noxy. But before we do that, I actually forgot to mention who our prize winner is for this week. Sorry, naughty me. The prize winner of the Zootli Nest, this is the last week they're sponsoring Zootli Nest, goes to Pablo Fernandez. You are the proud winner of a Zootli Nest coming your way. Watch out in the post. Well done, Paolo. Thanks to Zootli for sponsoring this month's shows. As we mentioned before, they run a store in Kloof Street in Cape Town, and they also have an online store, and they do grow equipment as well as other lifestyle things as well. So thanks to Zootli for being part of the show this month. We'll bring somebody else in for next month's show. But right now, let's cross over to Noxy for some insight into cannabis lifestyle and how not to let your clothes stink of Zol.
Good afternoon and welcome to the CannaSphere Lifestyle Desk with me, the Kush Queen, bringing you all things local, international, lifestyle, art, and entertainment in the CannaSphere. Now, we all love cannabis and we think the plant is phenomenal. In fact, we know the plant is phenomenal. But if you're a seasoned weed smoker, then you'll know that the smell of burning weed may not be so pleasant for all. Which leads us to today's topic, how to get rid of weed odor, because everyone doesn't need to know that you've been smoking pot. Okay, tip number 1, conceal your stash with deodorizer bags. This is one of the cheapest ways to mask the natural odor of your weed. Simply place one of these bags in the bag with your stash, and no one will know you've had some green stashed away somewhere. Look at that. Tip number 2, don't forget to freshen your breath. We know you can't be walking around with your toothbrush and your toothpaste the whole day, but you can try some gum. Not the sweet cherry flavor gum, but like something minty will definitely mask the smell of weed. Tip number 3, use incense. If there's one smell that is more recognizable than weed, it's incense. If you enjoy smoking in your house, then cover your tracks by filling your home with the smell of incense instead. And tip number 4, burn some scented candles. Any kind of scented candle is sure to have some beneficial effect on eliminating the smell of weed from your room. And to get the best results, light the candle 30 minutes before you start smoking. Now, we know there are seasoned smokers out there who probably have more tips and tricks for us. So do drop us a comment and let us know what are some of your tricks that you use to eliminate the smell of weed. Back to you, Trenton.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all had those moments where we're kind of like smoking a joint out of the window. When you take a drag and you blow it as far as you can so no one can smell it. Wash your hands and put it in your face. And,
use the hand cream. Yeah, there's so many other ways to handle it.
But there are other ways, such as edibles and vape pens. Those don't smell at all. If you're smoking a vaporizer, the odor from the vaporizer is very, very stealth. So I think stealth cannabis consumption is becoming a thing. How do you tell if somebody is a little bit out of it or not?
It's going to be very difficult to tell very soon.
Yeah, as it becomes normalized, we're going to walk around as a bunch of stoned people on this earth, which is not necessarily a bad thing as long as we don't drive and do things like that to be responsible. It's all good. Anyway, Noxy, we'll see you in a bit. Thanks so much for that. Right now, we're crossing over to Jeff Verlinden, who's going to talk a bit about Cannatech and International. Over to you, Jeff. Goodbye.
So for cannabis, Cannatech, essentially what we had a situation where everyone who attended the expo saw some interesting vape products available, anything from THCO to Delta 8 to HHC, and that brings me to HHC, which is hexahydrocannabinol. And that's the product we want to talk about today. Essentially, what is it? It's essentially when you take Delta 9 and you completely hydrogenate the actual bonds. So you actually just introduce a lot of hydrogen into the structure and remove the double bonds in the backbone of Delta 9. Hi guys, it seems we had a little bit of a technical glitch. So just to recap, we were talking about HHC, which is hexahydrocannabinol, which is essentially a completely hydrogenated version of Delta 9, essentially similar to how you convert vegetable oil into margarine. So really stabilizing out the molecule. The reason it exists is obviously to avoid drug testing and similar with other different Delta 8s and THCOs. But again, the chemistry behind it is what makes it tricky and a bit of a concerning product for consumer consumption. In terms of the regulatory markets, the biggest news has been the Danish market has been looking at an adult use model for implementation. We've seen also that they're called FAT, but essentially for alternative approaches to addiction. They've released a paper on how to potentially allow for adult use globally in alignment with the INCB, the Drug Narcotic Trafficking Policy. And then lastly, Zambia's army is busy looking to cultivate cannabis for export at this point. Back to you, Trenton. I know there was maybe some footage from the expo as well that might have wanted to be shared.
Yeah, I wanted to actually ask you about the expo quickly. Well, firstly, the Zambian army want to go weed. That's quite bizarre. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but anyway, we'll leave that to your imagination. So you were at the expo. Quick report on how it went.
Yeah, fantastic networking. I mean, for me, the networking is always the most important part. Really getting to go around, see, what new products in the market, seeing what the different players are doing. I think that's kind of always the best part. I think the B2B interactions, the discussions, hearing what's happening in one facility, hearing what's happening in one retail area, complaints with the regulators, what's going on at the national level. These are always the kind of questions that pop up at these expos, and they were great talks. A lot of interesting panels. Also on psychedelics, there was one or two good speakers on mushrooms. So there was really great content that came out in terms of the future of psychedelics in the space. And then I think the biggest issue is just how to get around a regulatory agreement about it. But just a great crowd, a great experience for everyone involved.
Great. Well, I always feel like when the expos happen that there's a sort of seismic leap forward in terms of the industry. So let's just hope it's one of the catalysts that we need to bring us together as a community, because ultimately we are all a community. We don't always necessarily get on with each other, but we are trying to build the same thing. So great, Jeff. Thanks so much. We'll see you same time, same place next week. Right now we're going to cross over to Dr. Carmen, who's going to talk about cannabis and opioids. Over to you.
welcome to this week's medical segment. Opioids are frequently prescribed to treat pain, and they can be very helpful in the acute phase to treat pain for the short term. However, opioids continue to be prescribed for chronic pain, despite there being questions about how effective they actually are at managing chronic pain, and despite the increased risk for things like dependence on opioids and overdoses on opioids, which can potentially lead to death. Now, a study recently published looked at 186 people who had chronic lower back pain that was non-cancerous in nature and really wanted to find out about how likely it was for these people to fill opioid prescriptions before and after they had access to medical cannabis. And so they looked at the 6 months prior to getting certification for access to medical cannabis and then the months following. And what the study showed is that there was definitely a reduction in the likelihood of people on opioid pain medication to fill those prescriptions for opioids once they had access to medical cannabis. And this is really interesting because it shows us that the risk to those people that existed before access to medical cannabis, risk of opioid dependence and overdose as a result of using opioids, could be potentially reduced by up to almost 50% if people had access to medical cannabis. Another thing that the study showed is that pain scores and overall function was improved after people had access to medical cannabis as compared to prior to access. And so this is another interesting way that cannabis can potentially help us in the treatment of people with chronic pain, not only reducing the pain itself, but also reducing potential dependence on opioid painkillers and potentially reducing the risk to those people for things like overdose and death.
Oh, here we are. Thank you for that, Dr. Carmen. We're going to go straight to Cuban Zulu because we're actually running out of time. The show is, we've got lots of content today. So Cuban Zulu, straight over to you to give us an insight into grow lights. Take it away.
Hi, Cannabis family. I'm Kwanda, Cuban Zulu, coming to you live from CannaSphere's Growth Desk. And today we speak about lights. I'd like to highlight that we are moving forward in terms of new and innovative things in our industry coming from local suppliers. Today we speak about Indoor Sun's Comet range. It's a range that has been around for some time, but they've, upped the ante and introduced some new things. Beautiful lights, well manufactured, sleek and beautiful design. What's special about these lights and what's been amplified is the way they direct their lights towards the plants. The photometric has been made better by 120-degree angle of the way that it shines down. And then of course it is a full spectrum light. This is done by Samsung diodes, and what you get from a full spectrum light is you give your plant the exact power that it needs, which is available from 400 nanometers to 700 nanometers. And as well, thinking about what we deal with in our common day of life in South Africa is load shedding. These lights are modular, so it's not just one button switches the whole light on. They've kind of separated it in its design so that if you're dealing with load shedding and you want to run a portion of your lights onto your inverter or backup power, you can do that, which is phenomenal. And well catered to our community.
Thanks, Kwanda. Really appreciate that update. Lighting is a very technical thing, so appreciate the insight. We'll see you same place, same time next week. Guys, we've actually come to the end of the show. So we say a quick goodbye. We've got 2 minutes to go. And thanks for joining us. We had a few little technical hiccups today, so thanks for showing us your little Honda. What's the name of your dog, Brett? I couldn't hear you when you were speaking. What's the name?
Odessa, named after the port city in Ukraine.
Interesting. Okay.
that
And what
is-
kind of dog is it?
It's a bulldog cross Rottweiler. That's the size of a kitten at the moment, and will soon be the size of a huge, a Rottweiler.
A lion.
Anyway, it's great to always have a new dog in the family, and but lots going on in the cannabis world here. Trenton and I share your optimism that I think maybe after this expo there will be another surge forward, because that was a great networking opportunity, and there's usually a whole lot of renewed energy that emerges from these things.
Absolutely. We need all the energy we can get. So fingers crossed things move faster and furiously. So thanks so much for the updates. Lots of things going on at the moment. This is CannaSphere Africa. We come to you every week live, and you can watch the replay and the rewind, and tune in, spread the word, subscribe, all those kind of funny things. Brett, we'll see you next week.
Right, cheers. Go well, everybody.
Ciao.